Repeating today, Enkrid spent each day as valuable. He did not spend any day in vain.
I am an all-rounder.
In terms of swordsmanship, he could not become a master or a prodigy. Genius was out of the question. After the 8th failure, Enkrid thought,
I tried to finish the meal with one fork.
rather than genius or prodigy, he was on such a subject. Enkrid divided his work.
Half a step at a time.
There was no boredom. Repeating today, along with increasing skills, it was a drug. Enkrid enjoyed this situation more than anything.
There are many good points.
Above all, the best point is being able to experience real combat endlessly. It is a profound experience that costs life. Enkrid made full use of it, and until he stepped onto the battlefield, he spent his day fulfilling, training the heart of the beast, learning swordsmanship anew. Along with it, repeating time also made him memorize what was happening around him. The gambling at the neighboring barracks during breakfast was a good example.
What the hell? You cheated, didn't you?
Cheated, this guy. It's just luck.
It's a lively morning scene. It's not cheating. I've seen it several times. The dice always roll the same number, and Enkrid knew that. Passing by, he spends another day. He repeats. Repeated real battles broadened Enkrid's concept. To be precise, he had plenty of time to think, so his thinking expanded.
There's no need to specifically deflect an arrow to save Belle.
That's what a first-rate mercenary can do. Enkrid gave up cleanly, and thus he could save Belle. All he needed was a stronger shield. The arrow stuck into the round shield. No matter how skilled an archer is, it's impossible to hit the head of a soldier hiding behind a shield.
Where did you pop out from?
The breathless Belle said with wide eyes.
How long are you going to roll on the ground? Get up already?
Enkrid wiped the sweat off his forehead with his hand, then kicked Belle's butt with his foot. Having his butt patted, Belle headed back to the battlefield once again.
Can I see that guy's face tomorrow from saving him here?
Who knows? He just made this place his first checkpoint. Rummaging through the battlefield to find Belle was Enkrid's small goal. He achieved that on the 25th today.
Oh dear, Mother Superior of the monastery. If I have time, I'll save you too, instead of those other unit bastards.
It was a daily occurrence for Rem to suddenly pop out from behind and babble nonsense. Every time he rescued Belle, he would spit out insane remarks with a different repertoire. Each time, Enkrid would respond in kind. Mother referred to the nun in charge of the monastery.
You're a scandal. You look filthy.
The monastery doesn't accept anyone who isn't a believer. A scandal means leaving Mother's embrace, essentially being expelled from the monastery. It's quite a high-level joke to do with Rem.
A dirty world that discriminates based on appearance.
As always, Rem didn't back down and darted away. It was obvious he was going after someone with the eyes of a hawk or something like that, without saying a word. Despite repeating such days countless times, Enkrid couldn't defeat the enemy troops by thrusting. He was fortunate to block several attacks, but at that moment someone jumped out from the side and smashed his skull with a hammer.
There's no time to waste.
The one who shattered Enkrid's skull spoke. Enkrid didn't even know how it happened. Suddenly, his vision spun around and the ground approached. He couldn't even lift his head. He just felt sticky liquid flowing down his face. When he finally somewhat regained consciousness, he realized he was kneeling with his sword lost.
Must be painful, but it's mercy.
Soon he had to struggle with the pain as the blade pierced his throat. The blade plunged into his throat. Unbearable pain surged through his entire body. The pain of a heated iron rod twisting in his throat shook his brain. As Enkrid approached death, he blinked. His world turned red from blood entering his eyes. Beyond that reddened sight, through the helmet's gap, he saw the red eyes of an enemy soldier wielding a sword. It might not actually have been red, but that's how it appeared at that moment. There was a grim satisfaction in the enemy soldier's eyes. Having faced death so many times, everything seemed trivial. Perhaps it was thanks to the trained heart of a beast.
What a twisted bastard.
The purpose wasn't to show mercy, but to feel exhilaration in the act of killing. He always inserted and slowly withdrew the blade into Enkrid's throat. He might not have realized that he was aroused by feeling someone's final breath escape through the sword. Despite realizing this, Enkrid remained composed. Having crossed the moment of death countless times naturally instilled courage in him. It was inevitable, and then,
Are you secretly enjoying some kind of illicit affair?
Out of nowhere, Rem spoke for the 66th time. Enkrid frowned at Rem's words. What nonsense is this?
What?
The heart of the beast, you learned it from me. But there's no way you could train like this alone.
The edge of the axe blade hovered just inches from his eyeballs. If it had come any closer, the rush of air alone would have scratched his cornea. Thanks to this, Enkrid could only see half of Rem's face beyond the finely honed axe blade. Yet even in this moment, he didn't falter. It was the strength provided by the heart of the beast. The courage that allowed him to endure, knowing that pain would come. Enkrid looked into Rem's questioning eyes beyond the axe blade and thought,
Such things can happen.
by repeating today his heart of a beast had been trained, so as the one who taught him that, it could be absurd. Now that he realized it, it was partly because Rem was the type of squad member who didn't hold back in any situation. Rem often made rude remarks, but he wasn't one to nitpick over things. But the heart of the beast would be a different story, especially since he taught it himself. Enkrid didn't make any petty excuses. There was no need for that. After thinking all day, he could make up for it on the day that started again. Thunk Rem pulled back the axe. Enkrid's vision cleared. There was no trace of anger on his face. Rem handled the hefty axe like an extension of his own hand. Pulling back the axe, Rem scratched his head with the end of the handle.
I don't get it. Did you learn this from someone else, not me?
Even as he said it, his expression questioned the logic of his words. Enkrid was the sergeant, and without him this damn squad was a stubborn group that wouldn't listen. Since learning the heart of the beast from Rem, Enkrid had never left the squad, so, even if he wanted to learn. Rem had been watching Enkrid all along. Perhaps he had learned secretly while on duty, but that also didn't make sense.
Using a sword is something you can understand even if you die this afternoon. Ah, I see. But how could only the heart toughen up?
Rem said, but it doesn't make sense. He might die this afternoon. Rem didn't know anything, but his words hit home for no reason.
I've crossed the brink of death countless times.
Enkrid thought, giving a vague reply. There's nothing more from Rem to learn about the heart of the beast. No excuse can completely satisfy the doubts of this barbarian-born guy.
I can't say that I learn from you every day as today repeats. And that's how it turned out as I learned while dying.
But he could somewhat brush it off. Rem isn't that picky. Indeed, there was no need to prolong the conversation.
Let's leave it at that. Sometimes the goddess of luck drops a coin without even realizing it.
It's a common saying for soldiers who survive through unexpected coincidences. Does that apply when mastering such tricks? If not, what then? Rem had crossed over.
Thanks to you, it's more fun than before. My skills have improved a bit. What secret mischief are you up to?
Something so painful it could kill.
Enkrid wasn't lying.
Yeah, a man should have a few secrets. That's what makes a man. You should know.
Rem didn't even care about that. He just said what he had to say and lifted his axe as before.
One more round?
Rem with the axe said, and Enkrid silently raised his sword. If saving the fallen soldier Bell is the first goal, the second and final goal is to feel exhilaration every time he kills someone. It was to kill the perverted bastard who is good at stabbing. He was prepared for that. It was a scorching day, the 100th, facing off with Rem. Enkrid pulled his arm and flexed his muscles. Stretching his left leg forward, he aimed to step on Rem's foot. Quickly catching on, Rem withdrew his foot, and seeing this, Enkrid twisted his waist around his left foot planted firmly on the ground, instead of Rem's foot, and swung his sword with all his might. The foot was a feint. It was a move aimed at making Rem step back. He exerted force in his muscles and swung his sword. In a fleeting moment, Enkrid saw Rem's arm bend like a whip. It was such an unreal sight that even the axe in his hand seemed to bend. It happened in an instant. The axe blade bent and shot upward like lightning. That's when Enkrid struck with the sword he held. The sword flew upwards. Slipping from Enkrid's hand, the sword whizzed through the air and then thudded sharply onto the ground. The sound echoed as the sword's edge accidentally struck the stone embedded in the ground. Enkrid could see the sword rolling on the ground.
Let's take a look.
Suddenly approaching, Rem grabbed Enkrid's wrist. His hand trembled from the shock of losing the sword. Rem looked at Enkrid's hand and clicked his tongue.
It should draw a little blood.
What?
Adjust your strength a bit. Wielding an axe recklessly isn't the point here. That thrust was alright, decent, but it lacked a bit. I'm not good at explaining this, but you should have shattered the hilt just now. It's not about letting go of the sword even if you die.
Enkrid raised his right hand, remembering countless teachings from his swordsmanship teacher. Starting each day anew amid repetitive days is exhausting. Enkrid remembered to change the beginning of each day little by little. Since childhood, his memory has been exceptional. Up until now, his memory hasn't been much help in swordsmanship. Of course, it's different now, especially when recalling what he learned from his teachers. That's what he said as he recalled his teachings.
What nonsense is this? If necessary, throw your sword at the enemy's face. It's good. Let's make it easier. Where did you aim that thrust earlier?
Rem said, snorting. Enkrid didn't answer easily. That thrust was a secret technique. A technique he stole from the enemy, stabbing his throat more than 100 times. From the overall posture, the position of the foot and the sword's weight, muscle movement, the direction of the toes, and the shape of the hand holding the sword. He stole and imitated everything.
A moment ago, that sword strike superficially convincing, but damn it, it's ridiculously difficult to explain. Here, this is Boosh.
Rem lowered the axe and drew a large circle on the dirt floor. It was roughly the size of a human head.
Let's say our destination is around here.
Rem said, rotating the axe over the circle and then making a sharp mark.
But in reality, we're going here.
At first, Enkrid was puzzled by what this meant, but perhaps the time spent learning from his swordsmanship teacher wasn't in vain. Despite the vague explanation, he grasped it like a sweet, ripe fruit stuck on the tongue.
Target.
What was the essence of the thrust he had just executed? Did he want praise for doing well? By imitating well, did he want recognition that he had even the slightest talent? What is the point? What is a sword used for? Cutting and thrusting, a lethal weapon. Among them, thrusting is a fundamental technique in swordsmanship, aiming for a single point. It's especially prevalent in techniques like the triple swordplay. I heard that there are knights who use a thin blade to attack gaps in armor.
I really can't explain it any better. I thought you'd naturally evade or block, so I let go of the sword too easily. But that thrust earlier should have been decisive. Like, I'm going to stab you, and you can't dodge. I needed to show that decisively.
Rem said, still reflecting on whether he had explained himself well. True to his playful nature, his explanation was a bit erratic. However, if the opponent understood roughly, even a neighbor's barking dog-like explanation could be considered excellent. So, to Enkrid, it was a great explanation.
I wasn't confident in my sword,
he thought. The thrust earlier had been like that of a third-rate mercenary. On the 101st day, Enkrid realized. Up until the 120th day, he'd been thrusting with all his might. On the 124th day, Rem's lightning-like axe tore his handle apart. It didn't just tear, it exploded. Blood streamed down his handle. Enkrid laughed at what he'd accomplished.
Are you completely insane now? On the battlefield, there's no one more dangerous than a crazy ally, right? No, why do you keep laughing?
Rem looked unusually embarrassed, but Enkrid couldn't stop laughing.
For fuck's sake, stop laughing. You look like a crazy bastard.
Rem said, witnessing the events of the 124th today. Since he couldn't keep laughing forever, Enkrid soon stopped. Seeing this, Rem grabbed Enkrid's wrist and pulled out a bandage from his chest, wrapping it around tightly.
Just stay behind me today. With your hand like this, you're just asking to get yourself killed. If you tell the squad leader you got hurt during training, he's gonna flip out.
It's fine.
What do you mean it's fine? You'll die if you go to the battlefield with that hand. Is your lifelong dream to commit suicide? Because if it is, I won't stop you.
Rem wasn't wrong. Going into battle with a hand like this would be asking for death. However, for Enkrid, it wasn't a big problem. If he died one more time, it would just be the end of it. Then the 125th morning would dawn.
It's not boring.
'Cause he could end today's repetition. Enkrid hadn't only been honing his swordsmanship all this time. By repeating the same day 124 times, he had devised ways to get through today. People often say that when a common soldier survives their first battle, it's like they picked up a coin dropped by the goddess of luck. If you don't have exceptional talent, luck plays a huge role in keeping you alive. By Enkrid's calculations, he would need such luck several times to avoid death.
But I can't rely on luck alone.
Enkrid didn't need to do that. He knew what would happen on the battlefield, especially around him. Therefore, he could prepare and brace himself. On the 124th time, Enkrid was impaled through the neck again. His hand was so messed up that he couldn't properly counter with his sword. Even so, not wanting to waste even a single day, he watched the enemy soldiers thrust carefully. He took a deep breath and endured until the end. He did that.
It must hurt, that's mercy.
He endured the burning pain of the blade through his neck as he listened to the enemy soldier's voice. Something caught on his tongue, so just before he died, he spat it out. It was a broken molar. It happened because he clenched his teeth so hard from the pain. Yeah. It wasn't boring. He had spent the repetitive days meaningfully, and that made it enjoyable. But no matter what reason he attached to it,
I don't want to die.
there was no way dying could be enjoyable, especially having to die at the hands of some sadistic bastard who enjoy others' pain. If he could end it, he would. The moment he realized he was trapped in a day, Enkrid had made that decision. And then, the 125th morning dawned. Enkrid got up and picked up Rem's shoes, shaking them out.
What are you doing? Those are mine.
I know they stink. If you throw them at the enemy, the smell alone would take out 50 of them.
Judging by your foul mood, did you have a good dream something or stip?
A bug fell out of Rem's boot with a thud. Enkrid stepped on it, crushing it.
I saw it go in this morning.
Thanks.
Rem chuckled and put his boots back on. Leaving Rem behind, Enkrid pushed aside the tent flap and stepped outside. The sky was just beginning to lighten, a mix of dawn's blue and the yellow of the rising sun. The soldiers on the guard duty were busy clanging pots and pans. The newly awakened soldiers either rubbed their eyes and grumbled or silently went about their tasks.
Damn it, stop banging that. My head's going to split.
Well, who told you to get drunk last night?
It came from the tent in the back.
Shut up. If they catch you drinking, you're in for a punishment.
Whatever.
It was a conversation between the guard on duty and a soldier who had gotten drunk the night before. Listening to this, Enkrid glanced back and looked at the face of the drunken soldier. He was a squad leader in another unit, and that guy had a good mother. On the 66th day, to remember that day, Enkrid had struck up a conversation with him and pretended to be friendly.
Aren't you on morning duty?
You do it.
As he glanced back, Enkrid spoke abruptly to Rem, who had followed him.
Why should I?
You could do it just once. I've covered for you more than 5 times.
Were you really counting that?
Yeah, just yours.
Why just mine?
Because you're annoying.
During the 125 times, Enkrid hadn't been able to leave a single scratch on Rem's body. Not that he resented him. If he had any feelings, it was gratitude. Anyway, Rem would do it. Leaving morning duty to Rem was the pattern that had the highest survival rate and started the day in the best condition.
Fine. Damn it, I'll do it.
After some stretching to warm up, the cold morning air didn't make him shiver. While twisting his body this way and that, Enkrid stayed in front of the barracks. One by one, the squad members stepped outside. The first was Jackson. He was one of the more diligent squad members. Jackson made eye contact and gave a nod. Enkrid nodded back, somewhat casually. After a few more came out in succession, Enkrid caught the last one, who was half asleep.
Hey, Big Eyes.
Huh?
Nicknamed Big Eyes, his real name was Kreis Ullman. He was a squad member with a delicate appearance, and although the 444th squad was known for being full of misfits, Kreis was the only one with below-average combat skills. More precisely, he was someone even Enkrid could beat up.
Yon, why are you bothering me so early? Waking up at dawn is torture for someone as elite as me.
Kreis said, opening his mouth wide enough to tear. He hadn't even wiped the sleep from his eyes or splashed water on his face, but it was a face worth looking at. It was the kind of face that would catch the eye of anyone interested in men.
Get me a few things.
Kreis tilted his head at Enkrid's words. It was unusual for Enkrid to make such requests, so he was curious.
Did you start smoking? Or drinking? I can't get you women, no matter how good I am. I can't bring one here in these times.
Kreis was the unit's black market dealer who could get anything.
Do I look like I want a woman?
No, so what do you need?
5 throwing knives, oil-soaked leather, a large needle, deer leather gloves, 10 white hellebore flowers, and a handful of alum.
Enkrid indicated the size of the leather with his hands, roughly enough to wrap around an adult man's torso.
That's a lot of things I can't make sense of.
So can't you get them?
Kreis looked at Enkrid for a moment and then nodded.
There's nothing I can't get. But even if you're the squad leader, it's not free. You know that, right?
How much?
17 silver coins.
Scammer, 5 throwing knives could be bought at a blacksmith for 1 or 2 silver coins. Of course, if the price of iron sword, it could exceed 3 coins, but that was rare. Moreover, what Kreis would procure wouldn't be purely made of high-quality steel. Still, they would be decent enough to use. Good leather could be expensive, but it wouldn't be the kind that goes to renowned workshops. The only items that would really cost money were the needle and the deer leather gloves. Those would definitely cost at least 3 silver coins, even at the lowest price. White horse flowers could be found in a village for a few pennies. Alum could be acquired cheaply if there was a nearby leather workshop. Even though Enkrid had a good eye for these things, he didn't argue. Firstly, it was difficult to get such items within the unit without Kreis. Secondly, the odd price of 17 coins suggested it was the fair rate Kreis had set. There was another reason as well.
I can get them after breakfast, right?
You know that means I'll have to skip breakfast?
You never ate properly anyway.
True. But as far as I know, squad leader, you're not exactly swimming in silver, right?
Kreis made a round shape with his thumb and forefinger.
Not right now.
Sometimes he saved it his wages, but recently he had spent it all on getting a new sword. Right now he was broke. He would receive his pay after the battle, but asking for it in advance would make him look like a deserter.
Damn, this is troublesome.
Kreis said. Enkrid smiled in response. It was the kind of smile that only someone with a solid backup plan could show.
Lend me 5 copper coins.
Kreis generally didn't trust people, but it was different when it came to Enkrid.
Because he's the squad leader.
From what Kreis had seen, Enkrid wasn't the type to mess around. Most importantly, Enkrid had saved his life. Kreis took out 5 copper coins and handed them over. Enkrid, jingling the coins in his hand, headed to the adjacent barracks. Inside, a group had already set up a game early in the morning. It was a dice game involving the last night watch and a few others who preferred gambling over sleep. They were surprised to see Enkrid, but upon recognizing him, they looked puzzled.
What's this? Isn't it the squad leader of the 444th? Working hard early in the morning, I see.
Kreis, observing this, was impressed. He disliked gambling, he hated being swindled by con men, and he didn't like the idea of leaving hard-earned money to luck, risking to gain or lose it. Winning might be nice, but once someone gets a taste of it, they might get addicted to gambling. Losing would just mean the pouch of money would disappear meaninglessly. To Kreis, gambling was something only fools did. And yet, Enkrid joined such a scene.
Mind if I join?
Here.
It was the last night duty guard of the neighboring barracks. He rolled his eyes and glanced at his gambling companions before nodding.
Sure.
A fool is always welcome. As Enkrid moved to squat down, Kreis grabbed his collar.
You're planning to waste my 5 copper coins here?
His eyes were bright and large despite the sleep in them, staring at Enkrid.
He must have made quite a few women cry.
Enkrid thought, pushing Kreis's hand away.
Once borrowed, it's my money now.
With that, Enkrid took a seat. The gathered gamblers shifted to make room.
You know how to play dice?
A soldier rolling dice made from pig bones in a wooden cup asked.
If you get the same number, it's double. If you bet on higher or lower numbers, you get what you bet, right?
He had watched over the shoulder, but he had seen it 125 times. It was impossible not to know. There were 3 dice in total. The sum was 18. So, you call whether the sum would be higher or lower than 9. The guy in the middle was the dealer. This side rolled the dice while the others placed their bets.
Let's go for the first round then.
They played a quick game before breakfast. The stakes weren't high. At least 5 copper coins, at most 2 silver coins. Enkrid placed a bet of 5 copper coins.
Low, high, low, low, high, high, low.
In less than 10 minutes, Enkrid had 2 silver coins in his hand. The charm of dice games is their speed. It's a game that's enjoyable for its rapid, quick-paced nature. That's how they played. At first, Enkrid memorized the numbers that came up just for fun. Would the dice always show the same numbers every day? Even though it was a repeated day, things around him changed subtly. So he knew. The dice rolls were always the same.
The goddess of fortune must have given you more than a coin, maybe even a kiss,
said the soldier acting as the dealer when the silver coins in Enkrid's hand exceeded 10.
Isn't this cheating?
Originally, another soldier right next to him would have spoken, but the dealer beat him to it.
No cheating here, just some good luck today. Seems like the goddess whispered in your ear.
Enkrid casually brushed off the suspicious glances. They couldn't argue with that. The dealer rolls the dice. Even though they joke and tease, this was a bit too much. Moreover, from the middle onwards, Enkrid subtly bet on the winning side, gaining an advantage.
If it's cheating, you're the one rolling the dice. Thought you were casting a curse or something.
Well, it seems to be working. On other days, you'd go on like crazy, even if you kept losing.
A soldier who had managed to make some money thanks to Enkrid chuckled. The dealer acknowledged and spun a few more rounds before saying,
Let's wrap it up. Time's short.
Before they knew it, it was almost breakfast time. Enkrid rolled 10 silver coins in his hand. Starting with 5 copper coins, he had come this far. It was all the dealer's money.
That was fun. How about I take these 10 coins for the final round? Ready to take my winnings and leave.
Originally, the maximum bet was 5 silver coins. The dealer frowned at that. Given today's accuracy, there was no reason to hand over the winnings.
Then let's bet the same amount and wrap it up.
Enkrid continued before the other person could respond. What are the odds of rolling 3 dice and getting the same number? The soldier rolling the dice had never seen it in all his years, let alone in an actual game. It was all just fooling around for Enkrid, and he was ready to wager all his winnings. At least that's how it sounded to him. Suddenly, Cries stabbed Enkrid's back. Cries made a face.
Crazy, right?
No, not at all. Enkrid wasn't crazy.
10 silver coins on the same number.
All right.
Clack! The soldier rolled the dice and dropped them loudly on the floor. Just to be safe, he gently rolled them, ready for any accident.
Let's see.
With an expectant smile, the dealer opened the dice cup.
Wow, damn. Lady Luck came through. She did. Is this for real?
Everyone gathered was amazed, except Enkrid. 3, the dice showed the same number. I don't want to die further is a superficial reason. Enkrid felt a different fear, repeating today. I might be settling here because I'm afraid I'll never get this chance again if I skip today. A desire to stop here. That desire was a fear for Enkrid.
Was this what I wanted?
Settling for today is a wasted life. It's a life that cannot progress. Looking forward to tomorrow is a natural human psyche. Moreover, Enkrid was a human who dreamed of tomorrow with his inadequate talent. There were also rational and valid reasons.
I've learned everything there is to learn.
There's too little to gain from further training here. Then it must be time to move towards tomorrow.
What will happen if I survive?
Will this day just end then? I agonized countless times. In conclusion, I don't know. I didn't know how it would be after surviving.
If I can move forward.
Let's move forward. Isn't that how I've lived my whole life? Above all, Enkrid needed certainty. Can I really see tomorrow by repeating today? I don't know. That's why I'm challenging it. The mindset of a challenger was his everyday life. Today will be a long day. I'll have to use everything I've built up so far.
How did you do that?
Luck.
Are you just gonna pass it off as luck?
As they exited the tent, Cries asked with wider eyes than usual. The dealer friend who rolled the dice was speechless, but he didn't make a fuss, saying it was unreasonable. It was my hand that rolled the dice. Thanks to that, Enkrid was able to get up and leave easily. He had no guilt. He hadn't cheated before. Just like an amateur fortune teller, he knew every number the dice would throw up.
I owe you a drink in town later.
A soldier who benefited from Enkrid's share slapped his shoulder and passed by.
It's real luck. I'm no good at gambling.
Enkrid said, turning his steps. Cries followed closely.
If that's not being good, then all the good ones must be buried underground.
Sometimes luck just finds you.
If luck finds you twice, your pockets will be so full they might burst.
As they walked, Enkrid tossed 17 silver coins. At the sound of the coins hitting, Cries grabbed his pockets. Taking them, Cries said,
All right, I don't need to know.
Then suddenly, he stared at Enkrid with big eyes rolling.
I understand.
Understand what? When Enkrid asked with his eyes, Crais continued with a sly smile.
You're planning to impress the commander who's coming tomorrow, right? Hence the flowers? Well, rather than white campion, wouldn't roses or lilies be better?
Gamblings aside, it seemed like a peculiar type of request to fetch.
Will that work?
What on earth is going through this guy's head? Rumors were swirling that a new battalion commander was coming tomorrow, and apparently she was a woman. Yeah, they did say a woman was coming. But would she really fall head over heels just for a bouquet? Even the country girls wouldn't fall for that. Of course, if you had someone like Crais as your backup, maybe it could work. No, would it even then? If it goes well, you break even. If not, it could be straight to the gallows for insubordination.
If the squad leader gets dressed up, he actually looks quite decent.
Do you have to ask so thoroughly every time I ask you to fetch something?
Will he have to run himself into a sweat until lunchtime to get the goods? Seeing his gaze, Kreis understood and turned away. Kreis would move swiftly. It had to be that way. It had happened a few times before. Depending on how quickly that guy fetched it, Enkrid might have to sweat it out too. So now was the time to rest. Enkrid leisurely ate his breakfast. It was porridge with well-broken barley and wheat, hard bread and dried meat. Meat came only every 3 days. Luckily, today was that day. Otherwise, within the repetitive days, he wouldn't have even seen meat. Normally, he would soak the bread in the soup and eat it. He chewed on the somewhat thickened broth, finding it flavorful but still rough. He tore and mixed the dried meat as if dissecting it, then adjusted the seasoning to taste. Enkrid chewed thoroughly. A meal soon became the energy to move. Regardless of skill level, soldiers who had eaten well for days showed a difference in combat effectiveness compared to those who had starved. The warm broth slid down his throat and settled in his stomach. After repeating this a few times, his bowl was empty.
Tasty? The flavor of exploiting the labor of your comrades?
Rem approached, grumbling.
Very.
It's good if you eat without being picky. I haven't seen anyone who survives longer than the guy who eats whatever food is given. We have someone like that in our squad too. Despite that, it seems like he continues to live well. Maybe not for long.
Rem, who had been gossiping about his squadmates, soon picked up his bowl and moved away. It was time to diligently clean the bowls. After filling his stomach with bread and dried meat wrapped in thick soup, Enkrid carefully wiped down his sword with an oiled rag, then again with a dry one. The newly acquired sword wasn't made of famous steel or crafted by a renowned artisan, but it was quite serviceable. Its weight distribution was good, and the blade was sharp. It could cut through thick cloth armor or thin leather armor without difficulty. After finishing the sword maintenance and stepping out in front of the barracks, Kreis appeared. Turning his head left and right, Enkrid called out as he saw Kreis approaching.
Big eyes.
Kreis approached, with what looked like a bundle in his hands.
Here you go.
The bundle, of course, was the item Enkrid had ordered. Upon receiving it, it was exactly as he had expected. 5 throwing knives, slightly impure but usable. The quality wasn't great, but there was a greased bundle of leather and a large needle.
I could only manage to get deer leather gloves.
Kreis said as he rubbed his finger against the blade of the throwing knife. Indeed, there was only 1 pair of gloves for the left hand, not 2.
So here.
Kreis handed back 1 silver coin.
I calculated the deer leather gloves as 2.
Big Eyes, he's really sharp with money. It's a known fact. If you argue, you might get it. But it would take time. It was better to focus on today's work instead. There wasn't much time for this and that. He brought back dried white campions.
If you're not going to confess, why bother? I can't find any fresh ones.
The cheating bastard, Enkrid nodded. This was within his expectations. Who in their right mind would find a dozen fresh flowers on the battlefield?
Instead, there are 12.
At least the swindler had some conscience.
And here.
Kreis handed over a small box. Opening it revealed rice packed inside. Perhaps if the deal had fallen through, he would have haggled over the rice and barely managed to procure it later. It was a shady deal, but Enkrid didn't mind. He had everything he needed.
Thank you.
But seriously, what are you going to do?
Kreis was genuinely curious about what this amiable platoon leader was up to.
Thinking of doing some sewing and maybe brewing some liquor.
Kreis could only tilt his head at Enkrid's response. Sewing all of a sudden, and why brew liquor?
Well, all right then.
Without pressing further, Kreis left, and Enkrid securely sheathed the knife at his waist before tossing the rest into the tent. Then he strode purposefully. His destination was already set. As he walked unceasingly toward the outskirts of the barracks, a soldier spotted Enkrid and shouted,
Hey, you there. The squad leader, right? If you're here for business, don't go that way.
Why?
Yesterday, someone peeing there got bitten by a snake. Not a deadly one, but it's been itching and causing trouble all day.
I'm in a hurry. I'll be quick.
I warned you.
He wasn't actively looking for trouble. The soldier just dismissed Enkrid.
Unless your luck's really bad, you should be fine.
With that thought, the soldier turned away from Enkrid. Enkrid walked leisurely, surveying his surroundings, the outskirts of the barracks, designated for relieving oneself. Several foul-smelling pits and plenty of dry leaves scattered between a few large trees. Enkrid avoided the stench and spread the rice. Then he found a spot devoid of grass, squatted down, and picked up a nearby fallen branch, trimming its end with the tip of a throwing knife. He used the blade to scrape and shape the branch repeatedly, exerting force to refine its tip. After several cuts, the branch split at the tip like a spear. To onlookers, it seemed like he was passing time with nothing to do, but his mind was elsewhere. While working, Enkrid kept an eye on the dry leaves. Not long after finishing the branch, the leaves rustled. Snakes dislike rice. Having spread it to one side, it was natural for the snake to avoid that area. He had occasionally hunted snakes. Catching a good venomous one could fetch a good price. Once, when he asked a city drunkard what he did with snakes, he laughed heartily.
You never tried snake liquor? If not, just shut up.
He was quite the jovial drunkard. Pushing through the dry leaves, he spotted a squirming creature. It had a brown body with a moderately angular head. Enkrid pressed the end of the branch against its neck. Poke. In this simple action, he mixed in what he had learned about piercing. The snake couldn't avoid it. He swiftly knocked the snake's head with the knife handle to stun it.
1 down.
He repeated the same process a few more times. After spreading the remaining rice out, he continued until no more snakes appeared. It didn't take long. Before the sun could pass overhead, he was finished. Enkrid had caught 5 snakes. He attached each snake gripped by its head to a pouch made of thin leather. Startled, the snakes released venom from their venom glands. He repeated this process 5 times, and then placed the remaining snakes into a thick leather bag.
Constipation? It didn't come out for so long. I was about to check if I really got bitten by a snake.
It was the soldier he had spoken to earlier. He looked serious, as if genuinely concerned.
Thanks to you, I'm feeling relieved.
Enkrid replied casually and walked briskly away. Right behind Enkrid, near the barracks, the squad leader of that section had been doing piecework sewing since childhood. With decent handiwork skills, this friend had learned sewing over his mother's shoulder, and he wasn't bad at it, but he didn't think he could make a living from sewing, so he enlisted. And there's more, especially love booze. Enkrid knew these things about the sewing squad leader. He tossed the leather bundle in front of the squad leader, who was suffering from a hangover.
You need something?
His complexion wasn't great, but this guy's sewing was really worth it. It wasn't the first time. Threatening him with having drunk too much in front of the company commander would usually get him to half-ass the sewing.
Can you make gloves and knee, elbow, and arm guards with this?
Why should I?
The squad leader looked annoyed. A natural reaction. They hadn't interacted much before. It was too urgent to persuade him properly. Even starting now would be risky before the battle.
Do you have some hidden booze?
At that, the guy's expression changed, and he raised an eyebrow. He had the temperament of a wild boar. He actually looked like one. With that appearance, he had delicate sewing skills.
If we soak this in it, it'll kill the taste.
Saying that, Enkrid gently placed down the bundle of caught snakes. They wriggled and danced on the leather, a mad dance.
Snakes.
Without even looking inside, the guy said,
Ever tried snake booze?
At that, the squad leader nodded as if it were obvious.
You know it kills the taste.
Enkrid hadn't tried it himself, but he knew from the hearty boozer.
If you haven't tried it, you don't know the taste.
Saying it again, the squad leader vigorously nodded.
I'll give you the snakes, just make this.
How did you know I'm good at sewing? I heard it from the company commander the other day.
Never happened. It was something this guy had said while drunk. Well, it wasn't important.
Damn blabbermouth.
While grumbling, he picked up the needle. It was a fair deal.
Then please.
Yeah, fine, I got it.
His fellow soldier's eyes didn't stray from the snake pouch. Quite the snake liquor enthusiast, it seemed. Enkrid returned to the barracks, gathered the remaining items, and made his way to the spot where he had sparred with Rem. No one was asking questions. In such moments, the 444th Squad was preferable, a squad that also played the role of scapegoat. Behind a sparse little grove where few people came and went, Enkrid wore deer leather gloves and crushed white moonflowers with a rock. He repeated this until the white petals turned a dark green, then mixed in the snake venom. Normally, this venom only induced itching, but when mixed with moonflowers, it changed. On the 77th day of today, in front of a paralyzed Enkrid, There was an enemy who laughed aloud. What's good about telling how to make this? So, after making it a few times, it was pretty good. Smash the flowers, mix the venom, and put the resulting sticky green liquid on a flat, regular stone with a dagger. The knife sparkled, reflecting a shiny green light.
That's the end of preparation.
Each squad assemble.
Inside the military camp, there was a loud scream. After repeating today, Enkrid was well aware of what was going on. It was a call for combat orders. It wasn't a place for explaining grand strategies, just to give the order to prepare for battle. The command to be ready was all. As soon as Enkrid heard the order, he headed towards the rear barracks. By now, the sewing master who had sent a replacement to the squad leaders' assembly under the excuse of being sick would have finished making the items.
You didn't give me the thread.
Indeed, it was so. The sturdy leather hand, knee, and elbow guards greeted Enkrid in a decent shape.
Thread?
Feigning ignorance, the squad leader who liked alcohol snorted.
What do you expect me to do if you only give me the leather?
What else?
You'll unravel the blanket thread, twist it well, and make it yourself.
This wasn't the first time. Even without giving him any thread, this guy who had received the squirming gift managed it well on his own.
I forgot.
You don't look like you forgot at all.
Even with a hangover, he had a keen sense.
No, I really forgot.
He didn't look convinced, but what did it matter? Enkrid gathered up the leather guards. The stitching was meticulous. Although Enkrid had made them himself before, this guy's work was certainly of higher quality. He was satisfied.
I feel deceived. Good job.
He patted the shoulder once and returned to the barracks. As soon as Enkrid returned, he only mentioned that there would be a battle in the afternoon, then sat in his place and busily moved his hands. Enkrid drew his sword, holding the deer leather gloves in both hands, and cut them back and forth. After cutting the leather almost halfway, he laid it out long and started crafting a sheath for the throwing knife. Finally, he cut the end of the leather into several long strands with the sword, tied it into a knot, and wore it like a belt. It wasn't the first time he had done this. Having repeated it dozens of times, Enkrid was familiar with it. His hands moved without hesitation. Seeing this, Rem poked his head over his shoulder and asked,
What are you doing? You have a small knife. Why are you using that?
Just testing if the blade is sharp.
You have good hands. Your sword skills should be just as good.
This guy always had to stab people with his words. It wasn't a hurtful comment. It was something said lightly even when his skills weren't improving, and he was making no progress. Enkrid ignored him.
After all the trouble I went through to get it for you, you tear it up just to make a sheath?
Crace poked his head over the other's shoulder.
Why are these guys so interested in me?
Maybe their heads were messed up, and they thought of him as their real mom.
That's kind of horrifying, because I used it all.
I don't know what you're thinking. Did you eat something bad somewhere? Come to think of it, you've been running around all day. What's going on?
Nothing.
He brushed it off lightly. After wiping the blade once more, Enkrid sat down quietly and closed his eyes. Then he recalled the countless battlefields he had experienced. The events flashed by like a panorama. It was the battlefield he had faced 125 times. Enkrid repeated it in his mind. Preparation was for survival, not for improving swordsmanship.
The battlefield isn't a swordsmanship training ground.
Even if his swordsmanship wasn't perfect, the long experience of survival didn't go away. Was it truly the sword that kept Enkrid alive during that time? No. Situations, luck, preparation, calmness. He survived by mixing all those together. Therefore, today too.
The same.
He does his best to survive. Enkrid decided to escape today.
Charge.
The cry of an ally is heard. Enkrid was soon driven to the center of the battlefield. He wasn't flustered. He didn't run in excitement. He lifted his head, watched the battlefield with his eyes, and regulated his breathing with his mouth. Short but calm breaths. He saw the enemy. He saw his allies. The charging enemy, the retreating allies. He drew his sword, and then a flying blade came into sight. Enkrid deflected the spear blade with the shield in his left hand. It was a task he had repeated many times. There were no mistakes. Deflecting the spear blade, he took a step forward.
He
thrust his right foot into the heel of the startled enemy and bent his knee, preparing for the impact. Everything happened in a single breath. As if they had practiced together, The opponent tripped naturally and fell backward. The one who fell head first blinked his eyes. He looked bewildered. He probably didn't even know how it happened. He had thrust his spear and tried to retreat, but tripped and fell with a thunk. It all happened in an instant. As Enkrid passed by the fallen opponent, he kicked his chin with the tip of his foot. With a crisp sound, fragments of teeth and blood flowed from his mouth. He was knocked out. He didn't even feel the need to kill. As he advanced, he raised his left arm. A club swung at his shield, grazing Enkrid's elbow. It was a club with embedded spikes, no injury. The leather armor wrapped around his elbow did its job.
Damn it!
The enemy gritted his teeth. Beneath the helmet that covered half his face, his jaw muscles were tensed. This guy was a tough opponent, one that would take a lot of effort to handle properly. Throughout today, there had been many times when this guy had targeted his left arm. Gripping the handle, he stepped forward with his left foot. It was the Valen mercenary sword technique. He locked eyes with the opponent. If he drew his sword, a fight was inevitable. Both he and the enemy knew this. Their eyes met, and an unspoken agreement was made. They would fight with sword and club. The enemy's eyes focused on Enkrid's right hand. Before the sword was even fully drawn, Enkrid's left hand moved first. A throwing knife, previously tucked in his waist, flew through the air. The enemy with the club, startled, raised his arm. The blade embedded itself in the enemy's arm. Even though he wore a gambeson, a padded cloth armor, the arm wasn't thickly padded, otherwise it would restrict movement. Thus, the blade likely reached and pierced the skin.
You coward.
The enemy spoke. There is no such thing as cowardice or dishonor in a fight. Enkrid silently sheathed his sword with a swift motion. The Valen mercenary sword technique involved pretending to draw the sword while throwing a dagger or a stone instead.
You scoundrel.
The furious enemy with the spiked club raised veins on his forehead. That only made the poison spread faster. The enemy who had been charging suddenly collapsed forward. The paralyzing poison took full effect. With a thud, he crashed face first into the ground. Then he gasped and wheezed. Enkrid watched this and calmly walked past him. The next opponent received a kick to the groin and was shoved aside. The one after that was quietly pushed from behind as Enkrid walked up. An ally's hammer struck the head of the enemy who was stumbling in surprise. Even with a helmet, a blunt weapon can crack the skull. Moreover, it wasn't even a metal helmet, but a leather one. Enkrid hadn't shown any particularly extraordinary feats. He merely displayed the necessary moves and actions at the right moments. Of course, all of this contributed to minor victories for the allies around him.
Thanks for saving my life.
Someone whose face he didn't recognize said. He gave a slight nod and passed by. It wasn't particularly noteworthy.
You're a lifesaver. Sa squad leader? Was it luck or skill? Anyway, I'll buy you a drink later. Damn, I almost died.
There were quite a few people like that. The growth compared to before his first death was incomparable. At the center of it all was, of course, the heart of the beast.
Calmly.
And once again, calmly. The heart of the beast does not recklessly throb. Because it harbors wildness, it can look at everything calmly. In the middle of the battlefield, Enkrid felt the heartbeat and walked again. A battlefield he had repeated dozens of times. That doesn't mean he wasn't tense.
The more familiar you get, the more you get caught by variables.
Just because today repeats, it doesn't mean everyone he meets does the same things. How Enkrid responds changes the opponent's actions as well. Therefore, he walked slowly, prioritizing taking in the surrounding situation.
Around here.
Someone slashes a dagger from below, a novel attack aiming at his leg as they fall during the fight.
I've been caught by this before.
He had tried to dodge a few times. Then he found an easier way. It's like blocking an arrow. If you can't dodge it, you block it. The dagger that hit the leather greaves didn't cut Enkrid's shin. Of course it didn't.
Huh?
The single foolish word from the enemy was his last. Enkrid struck the back of the fallen enemy with the iron rim of his shield.
Gah.
The scream was short and small.
Oorah.
Instead, the battlefield's roar echoed in his ears. Enkrid's valiant efforts couldn't change the tide of the battle. Only those around him felt a little more at ease.
I can't save everyone.
This is a battlefield, a place where the number of dead reaches dozens or even hundreds. Trying to save everyone in such a place was a foolish and stupid act.
Huff, come at me, you bastards.
The shout came from a spearman of another squad. He knew who it was without seeing his face. Enkrid had taken down more than 5 enemies as he walked. That guy, shouting triumphantly, had actually died dozens of times. If Enkrid hadn't stepped in, he would have died today, too. Being cut in the shin and rolling on the ground to die was his usual fate. Enkrid straightened his back, took a deep breath, and exhaled.
This is the first step.
It was a battle repeated dozens of times. Enkrid had set his own standards. The first goal was to join the front lines without getting hurt.
No injuries.
A little while ago, I achieved my first goal. The second is,
Finding familiar faces amidst the chaos.
of course, I must avoid injury even in this chaos. That's the only way to properly face those twisted, stabbing enemies. After rolling across the battlefield more than 100 times, I had only one thought.
I want to fight in full condition.
Will all the effort, learning, and training I've done today pay off? Can I defeat the twisted ones who prefer mercy? Can I get through today with all my efforts? My heart races. Not with the bravery of the heart of the beast, but separate from it.
Today, I will get through it.
With clear goals and a definite purpose, Enkrid's heart beats. Back to the battlefield, walking, sometimes running.
Wah, damn it, spare me, ye are, you bastards.
Amidst a symphony of curses and shouts, Enkrid swiftly turned his head in all directions.
The one crouching and being cautious.
It's the one I'm looking for. It didn't seem difficult to find. I spotted a figure sneaking through the enemy ranks.
First things first.
Before facing the stabbing enemies, there was a task to be dealt with.
The clubber from behind.
Someone who has earned their nickname in their own way. If left alive, this bastard repeatedly stabs Enkrid in the back during fights. If it's fate, then so be it. Of course, Enkrid doesn't believe in fate.
Everything predetermined since birth? That's nonsense.
If the sword breaks even with a broken blade, if there's no weapon even with fists, if there are no teeth even with gums, if talent fails,
Even like this, I'll crawl up.
what kind of people are knights, really? What is the force that changes the course of the battlefield? Unattainable hopes become delusions, but if you can approach, it soon becomes a dream. Enkrid hasn't given up on his dream.
Huff.
Exhaling, he draws a dagger and pulls his arm back with force. In the murky midst of the battlefield, he feels the weight of the dagger at his fingertips, eyes on the target, drawing an imaginary line straight ahead. It's the throwing technique taught by the winner of a dagger-throwing contest one day in a tavern. He's practiced this dozens of times, repeating it today. Lifting his left foot slightly and releasing it, he twists his waist and extends his right hand forward. Lastly, focusing on the sensation at his fingertips, he snaps his wrist. The dagger flies along the imaginary line Enkrid drew.
Kerr.
The thrown dagger embeds itself around the shoulder of the club-wielding guy. Since his armor was light, it wasn't a difficult feat.
What a bastard.
The guy curses, looking around. There was no need to meet eyes. Without a cleric or antidote, he should just lie down quietly. Soon the guy falls, and Enkrid calmly starts looking for the second guy. This time it's someone good with throwing axes. This bastard has been hurling axes repeatedly, causing havoc. They need to be taken care of beforehand to avoid interference in the duel.
Oh gods.
A determined cry from loyal allies echoed. Curses and determined words were heard from all around. Enkrid scanned his surroundings and zeroed in on his target. He blocked minor attacks with his shield, stepping in to exploit any openings. With a swift blow to the head using the shield's edge, he struck down the fool who foolishly tightened his helmet. Just that action alone brought comfort to Enkrid's surrounding allies.
There are 3 throwing knives left.
No sight of the axe thrower.
His position changes every time.
But generally, this area seems correct.
First, take care of Bell.
It's time to save an ally who might be pierced by the eyes of a gnat.
Move to the right from here.
He walked while observing the allies' movements. After blocking several attacks while walking, he discarded his broken shield. Despite repeating this many times, it always broke.
Around here.
The battlefield repeated more than 100 times, but it was somewhat familiar and accustomed, even with changing conditions each time. The shield rolls on the ground. Enkrid stepped on the shield's edge with his foot. The shield, wedged against a stone, shot up into the air with a thunk. He grabbed it with a flick of his wrist. It was a gesture bordering on finesse, but after countless repetitions, it was more comfortable than bending over.
Nice move.
The voice of a fellow soldier who happened to witness it.
Enemy behind.
A friend who had been distracted several times today almost got caught off guard. Told not to die, he quickly turned around. There he faced an enemy wielding a spear.
Damn rat.
Soon the two fought for their lives. The ally emerged victorious. It was a fight witnessed at least 20 times. Therefore there was no need to watch. Familiar and yet unfamiliar battlefield. Enkrid divided the area in his mind and drew a map.
Let's go from Bell.
He moved his steps. Oof. Bell stumbled. A shield blocking an arrow.
Oh, what was that? I'm alive?
Don't just lie there. Crawl back. Arrows are flying.
Bell faithfully followed my advice. Among the repeated days, the second arrow to pierce Bell's head was about 60 times, so crawling back was the right move.
What? Did you secretly arrange a date with the goddess of luck?
It was Rem. Anyway, a barbarian. If a devout follower of the goddess hears this, they'd make a fuss without any hesitation.
Not even a scratch?
Meeting the thrusting foe in prime condition, that was Enkrid's final goal for today.
Do you have something to do there? Yeah, but you seem different today. I'm a different man every day these repeated days. Each day is a day of growth. You might need to take some medicine, squad leader.
With that, Rem left.
Was I too unlucky earlier?
Maybe so, but whatever it was, the truth was that. Just then, Enkrid spotted the enemy who enjoyed throwing axes. An enemy carrying an axe loosely at his waist. Wait for it. Enkrid drew his poisoned dagger. The man wielding the throwing axe shouted his final curse. A poisoned dagger embedded in his side. A spear tip pierced through his throat. Krrr! Foam mingled with blood, light fading from his eyes. And that's it. Enkrid stared into the man's eyes before stepping back.
Ooh-ah.
A comrade nearby screamed in agony. Immediately, the enemy in front echoed the scream.
Krah.
Both were of considerable stature. The impact was like two carriages colliding head-on. They grasped each other and began to spin around. Watching this, Enkrid stepped back. What must he do to preserve himself? What lessons had he learned, risking his life over 100 times? The art of self-preservation. That meant avoiding fighting as much as possible. Enkrid took cover.
You're dead. Damn it, you bastard.
Curses instead of battle cries, rushing with swords, spears, axes, and clubs.
Don't touch my brother, you damn bastard.
The dying soldier's parting words.
Stop bullshitting. Even if you say that, you're not responsible for your brother.
A soldier nonchalantly dismissing a comrade's death.
He's dead. He's dead.
Amidst the heat of the battlefield, a rookie soldier lost in a frenzy.
That crazy bastard. Let him be, he's just trying to play warrior.
A veteran, protecting his squad members while watching the frenzied rookie.
My name is Bar Crack.
The enemy soldier, showboating, is cut down mid-sentence. Pulling out the spear he stabbed with, his comrades laugh at him. The toe of a boot hits the ground, kicking up dust. In the pouring sunlight, dust floated lazily in the air. Beside that, an enemy poured out blood with a loud splat. Next to them, a comrade with a shattered head lay fallen. Flesh scattered on the ground, blood staining the earth. No matter how much you try to protect yourself, you can't survive the battlefield without doing anything.
Sigh, who?
Taking short breaths and exhaling long, Enkrid regulated his breathing. Between the dust, a spearhead flew menacingly towards him. Enkrid loosely held his shield and blocked the spear blade. Tuaang. The shield hit the spearhead, deflecting it to the side. Loosely gripping the handle allowed him to absorb the impact. At the same time, a club came flying diagonally from the side. Enkrid crouched forward to dodge the club and leaped towards the wielder. Thud. He slammed his shoulder into their chest. As they fell, he pulled out his dagger and stabbed them in the thigh. Squelch! The blade, tearing through thick cloth and more, left a long gash on the opponent's thigh.
This son of a bitch.
The enemy shouted, pushing Enkrid back. Using the force of the push to steady his stance, Enkrid drew his sword and swung horizontally. The thigh injury hindered movement. The stumbling opponent couldn't dodge and took the blade to the neck. The blade sank halfway. Enkrid applied force to pull it out. As the blade withdrew, muscles, nerves, tendons, and bones were severed. Blood gushed out, and the soldier instinctively covered his neck with his palm. Naturally, trying to stop such a wound with a palm was futile. Enkrid didn't look back. The spearman whose shield he had hit knew others would intervene.
But I will keep moving forward.
It was Bell. His rescue wasn't in vain. If he saved someone, he'd always watch his back. He's a loyal friend. The clashing of iron resounded continuously. Enkrid turned away from his fallen opponent and picked up a stone from the ground. Then he turned and threw it immediately. Amid the melee, an enemy soldier struck by the thrown rock hesitated. Bell swung his spear grandly, cleaving through the head. It was a splendid strike.
Seems like the debt's been repaid.
Bell gasped for breath as he spoke.
Do you really think so?
Is repaying a life debt that easy?
But I will keep moving forward, paid half.
Bell scratched his helmet with his blood-stained hand. But would that be enough? Bell stepped back slightly. Once you fall, you learn to protect yourself moderately. Following the flow of the battlefield, Enkrid also moved step by step.
Please save me, Gurgle.
A soldier pleading, foaming at the mouth, appeared, a familiar face. A dice gambler who had seen death many times.
I can't save you,
Enkrid said calmly. He had tried countless times, but saving him was impossible. Thus he stepped onto the battlefield. In the approaching enemy ranks, he found the pervert shouting mercy. It wasn't difficult. The moment he found him, Enkrid drew his last remaining dagger and threw it in rhythm with his running. Thwack, swoosh, swish. If he was just an ordinary guy, the timing of the thrown dagger would draw a solid line in the air that couldn't be avoided. The man twisted his body to deflect the dagger with his shoulder. The dagger, entering at an angle, bounced off the scapula. Even though it was a reflexive action, it was a defense close to perfect. Enkrid felt the gaze upon him. Blocking the dagger and immediately identifying its source, he had thought it many times, but this sadistic attacker was no ordinary person, he charged. With each pounding step kicking up bloody soil behind him, it wasn't more than a few steps away. So, this was the moment to test everything learned through repeated trials today. His physical condition was better than ever before. Thus the preparation was complete. The man swung his sword vertically. Enkrid raised his shield. A solid force reverberated from the blade hitting the oiled wood.
The basics of swordsmanship, its strength.
One of the swordsmanship instructors had said.
Overcome strength with technique. That's a joke. Try defeating a giant with just technique. Who knows how many fools died babbling about not spilling blood against giants. The basis of swordsmanship is strength. Strength, that's what rolls.
Thanks to that teacher, he could properly prepare his body. With his shield, Enkrid didn't easily give ground. In terms of strength, he was nearly equal to his opponent. The sadistic attacker sneered. While his vision was obscured by the shield, the man swept at Enkrid's ankle. Enkrid blocked the man's toe with his shin guard. The steel-plated boots were weapons in themselves. There was a sharp pain in his thigh, but it didn't break. That's good. Pushing his shield outward, he drew his sword and swung from bottom to top. As if anticipating the thrust, the sadistic attacker had already retreated beyond the reach of the sword. Enkrid then leaped forward deeper than the distance he had retreated. It was a charge aimed at exploiting the opening left by the sword swing.
Ha!
Enkrid shouted as he swung his shield like a hammer, putting all his strength into it. The charging pervert jerked his head back. The man struck on the head and toppled sideways. Enkrid stepped back after attempting another swing with his sword. The fallen man pulled out his dagger and swung it diagonally. If he had charged forward, the blade would have struck above Enkrid's shin guard. It was seizing the opportunity to find a gap in the shin guard's position in a brief moment. The world might call such a skill a talent. Enkrid had to learn to hit the heart of the beast countless times to do that, even though it had cost him his life. But his opponent was not that. However, But there was no skill that could roll endlessly on the battlefield. Enkrid could see it too. His opponent was either a rookie or a soldier with little battlefield experience. Otherwise, they wouldn't charge so recklessly. It was the same when they first met. He almost fell victim to his own thrust, inexperienced yet gifted. He wasn't jealous.
I can catch him, I can do it.
Confidence surged within him. He had a gut feeling that today's efforts wouldn't be in vain. It was time for his efforts, accompanied by death, to reap their rewards.
This bastard.
Fierce anger gleamed in his eyes. The man swiftly got up, and in the midst of it another ally intervened between Enkrid and him. Without hesitation, the sadistic attacker crouched and struck at the ally's shin with the hand holding the sword. The sound of bones breaking. Whenever allies intervened, this pattern always followed. Then, in one fluid motion, he stabbed the ally's throat with his dagger, a fluid attack pattern like flowing water. It was a pattern he was already familiar with. The sadistic attacker pulled out his dagger. The startled soldier could do nothing but widen his eyes. Just before the blade pierced his throat, swiftly, the soldier's body jerked backward. Slash, thunk. Instead of piercing his throat, the blade stabbed his cheek, grazed his carotid artery, and scraped off his helmet. The startled soldier fell back, unable to speak, clutching his buttocks in pain. Enkrid released the hand that had gripped the soldier's neck instead of the sword and stood before the soldier.
Back off.
This was his fight. That was his opponent. He had to confirm what he had achieved. His heart pounded. Enkrid felt a whirlwind of complex emotions. Firstly, whether it was right to surpass this day. Doubts about whether he could defeat his opponent. Rising adrenaline rushing through him, and an unfounded intuition that he had to surpass the opponent in front of him to move forward.
I'm not impressed.
The sadistic attacker said, "Look how petty this is. It's evidence of lack of experience apart from talent. If he had been truly serious."
He should have shown vulnerability instead of words.
That's right. He should have feigned carelessness and attacked back. That's what he needed to do to win. So, Enkrid did just that.
Who?
Deliberately breathing heavily, startling at a gesture from his opponent. At one moment, the opponent's eyes, which had seemed fiery red, now looked dull brown. Those brown eyes gleamed. The sadistic attacker approached confidently, drawing his knife. It was a completely different speed than before. His heart pounded. There was no panic or closing of the eyes. The heart of the beast was always courageous.
Watch closely and just dodge.
Rem always said that. I thought I was being mocked. No, it showed. He put force into his ankle, twisting his body. The blade grazed his shoulder raw. After dodging, he slashed horizontally with the blade. The opponent stood their dagger upright. Enkrid's sword and the opponent's dagger formed a cross. Tididididing in that state, he exerted force, causing the blades to spark. The opponent twisted their dagger obliquely, deflecting the blade sideways. Enkrid didn't thrust his sword, but held his shield close to his body. The blade struck the edge of the shield. Sparks flew here too. The thrusting man had somehow pulled the sword and swung it. Did he experience it once or twice? The pattern became familiar. Quickly turning his head, suddenly the enemy's figure was gone. Enkrid raised his sword vertically and stamped it on the ground. The man charging forward stopped. With a loud thud, the tip of the sword pierced the blood-soaked ground. The man bent over with a twisted posture, only lifting his head. His youthful eyes were fierce.
Tricks.
With his words, he clenched his teeth. Tricks are also a talent, my son. Enkrid didn't reply. Instead, he kicked dirt at his opponent. The man swiftly blocked his face with his forearm, blocking with reflexes again. Not the first or second time seeing this scene, it was trivial.
This bastard.
When gaining the upper hand, he boasted mercy and discussed vile joy. Easily agitated in the heat of the moment, his character was grasped early on. As he rose, the man charged again. Thwack, thud, bam! Blocking the continuous sword strikes with his shield, the shield soon began to creak. Amidst the flurry, the man closed the gap and thrust with his dagger, aiming for the side. Previously, he had staggered and died from this. Enkrid raised his elbow to intercept. The blade was blocked by sturdy leather armor. At the same time, Enkrid leaned forward, pushing his forehead out. Valen mercenary sword technique, close combat. A headbutt. Bam!
Ka.
With all my strength I pushed forward, and his head jerked back. Normally, at this time there would be someone swinging a club from behind. But not today. No one threw an throwing axe either. Instead, there was Bell.
But I will keep moving forward.
Bell shouted.
Deal with anyone interfering or blocking.
Because he's my opponent.
Suppressing the rising nausea, he balanced himself and heard the opponent muttering as anger surged in him.
This crazy bastard.
Yeah, if my head is spinning, yours will too.
The dizziness quickly faded.
Watch as you struggle and die.
The stab fiend took a stance, one foot forward, the other back, a posture akin to charging cavalry. From that stance begins the arrow-like speed of his thrust. Tension squeezed his heart. He exhaled to release the tension.
Stay calm.
Could he overcome the wall of talent with repetition of today? It's time to find that answer. He moved. It was just a dot. It seemed so simple. Many times I've experienced it, yet it remained the same. The dot soon became light and then a blade, piercing through Enkrid's body. No, narrowly dodged. Pang. The blade grazed his side. Anticipating the stance, predicting where he aimed, he moved with the blade's motion. Enkrid's body faithfully followed his thoughts. A sharp pain followed as his side grazed. He ignored it. Instead, his left foot forward soared back. His right elbow pulled back with strength. Like an arrow drawn for battle, power to his left foot shifted the center of gravity. Learned by watching. Learned by being pierced. Mastered through sparring with Rem. Advancing, focusing more on balance than strength. His determination imbued in the blade. With resolute determination imbued into the sword, releasing the tensioned muscles, he thrust his sword. The meticulously sharpened tip of the sword pierced through the fiend's heart, breaking through leather and thick cloth armor, touching that heart. It felt as though sword, hand, and arm had become one in satisfaction. In that moment of enjoying the fruits of effort, the taste of achievement.
Hey!
Someone shouted. Enkrid didn't even register the cry before he could revel in the joy of victory. Starting from his left side, he felt a tremendous shock that lifted his body into the air.
Huh?
What's this? In the 25 toe days, he had never experienced such a situation.
But I will keep moving, Frog.
Whether it was Bell or someone else, he couldn't tell, but he heard that shout. That was Enkrid's last memory. He blacked out.